A sovereign wealth fund.
Sovereign wealth fund.
We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund.
What the hell is a sovereign wealth fund?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm just a guy that had a mental breakdown about the state of the world and put it up on YouTube, and then no one watched it. So now I'm on a journey to make sure that never happens again. This is S.O.L.
Welcome back to S.O.L, ladies and gentlemen. What are we talking about today? Something the media doesn't really want to cover. Why, you might ask? Well, that's because I don't think they've figured out a way to make it sound racist or misogynistic or like it's the greatest thing to ever happen on the planet. Yet. But imagine this for me. What if old Uncle Sam stopped living paycheck to paycheck and finally started saving some money? No. Seriously, hear me out. I know that sounds insane, but what if the U.S. had a rainy day fund? Like a giant national piggy bank that could make you richer, lower our national debt, and maybe, just maybe, get us out of this $1 trillion hole that we are in. Today, we're talking about sovereign wealth funds and how Trump's move to create a U.S. national sovereign wealth fund could absolutely change the game for the better or for the worse for our country and our daily lives. Make sure to watch to the end. You don't want to miss this one. We cover some crazy things, and you might actually learn something. First off, if you found yourself asking, what the hell is a sovereign wealth fund? Don't worry, you're not alone. Not a whole lot of people even really understand what they are. So think of it like this. It's a giant investment and owned by the government. Instead of just taxing people and spending that money right away, a country puts some of its extra cash into stocks, real estate, tech companies, you name it, to make even more money off of that money they're already taking from us. It's not a new concept. Actually, quite a few countries have it in place, and a lot of them are having a lot of success from it. To go a little deeper into a few, because we have to understand the track record of them before we can decide if this is a good idea or not, we need to look at countries like Norway, Saudi Arabia, and even the United Arab Emirates, or UAE. And they've been doing this for decades, and they're making billions, sometimes even trillions from these funds. So let's break it down, country by country, just to see how they're pulling this off. Norway's sovereign wealth fund, it's officially called the Government Pension Fund Global. It was set up in 1990. The idea was simple. Take our profits from our booming North Sea oil industry and invest them into the future. But they didn't just blow that money right away on dumb investments. They waited until 1996 to make their first investment. They waited 6 years to make sure they're making the right move. And now, fast forward to today, it's worth over $1.5 trillion. The returns from the fund make up 20% of Norway's national budget every year, but they only spend about 3% of it annually, keeping the rest growing for future generations. It's like a trust fund for the entire country. Saudi Arabia is another huge player in this. Their sovereign wealth fund is called the Public Investment Fund, or PIF. It was created in 1971, but it really didn't take off until the 2010s, when the country started to diversify away from oil. The fund is now worth over $700 billion and invests in everything from Uber to electric cars to massive futuristic cities like the NEO. The PIF is a key part of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan to reduce their dependence on oil and build a more diversified, sustainable economy. And it's working. Non-oil sectors are growing, and the country is becoming a global player in tech and in tourism. The last one on the list is one of the best examples of how much this can turn things around. The UAE, and specifically Abu Dhabi, has the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, one of the oldest and biggest sovereign wealth funds. Founded in 1976, the fund manages over $800 billion and invests globally in real estate, infrastructure, and financial markets. This fund has helped transform the UAE from a desert economy into a global hub for tourism, finance, and technology. Ever wonder how cities just pop out of nowhere like Abu Dhabi? It almost seemed like it happened overnight. But that all comes from their sovereign wealth fund and being able to invest massively into that city and creating it a tourism hub that now you can't swipe 4 times without seeing an influencer post from being there. But what do all of these countries have in common? They use their natural resources, mostly oil, to build massive funds that not only secured their future, but also help diversify their economies. These funds have stabilized their budgets, reduced their dependence on volatile industries, and in some cases, like Norway, even provided for the citizens directly. So, why don't we have one already? It seems like a pretty simple question because we're the biggest economy on the globe in a sense. Our buying power matches almost nobody. Here's the thing though. When you have that much buying power and all you do is the buying, you kind of go broke. We're running in a budget deficit. Our trade deals are terrible. I believe last year's deficit was $1 trillion. Yeah, you heard me right. From our trade deals that are supposed to make us money, they cost us almost $1 trillion. In 2023, that deficit on our budget was 1.7 trillion. And our national debt, it's just a casual 33 trillion. So it's like trying to save money too while you're already drowning in credit card debt. Us having a sovereign wealth fund, if you really think about it, is like that one guy we all know who is just like, you gotta invest in crypto. You gotta invest in crypto, bro. While he's maxed out on all of his credit cards and 2 months behind on his pre-owned BMW car payment. I know it's a pretty specific example. Normally, he kind of looks like this. Everything's starting to add up. But here's where it gets interesting because we need to get back on track. Even though we're in debt, the US could still set up a sovereign wealth fund. It's just about being creative and maybe just a little bit bold. So how could we do it? First, we need to talk about where the hell would the money come from because we don't have any right now. There's a few ways we can get that ball rolling. We actually have a ton of natural resources: oil, gas, minerals, timber. Alaska, one of the main producers of our oil, they already have their own mini sovereign wealth fund called the Alaska Permanent Fund, funded by oil revenues. Every Alaskan gets a check every year. In 2022, it was about $1,300. Now imagine if we could find a way to do that countrywide. Also, we can look into different tax structures, like a small tax on big companies like Google or Amazon, or on industries that pollute, like a carbon tax. This money could go straight into the fund instead of just being spent immediately trying to get us out of this never-ending hole where we can't even cover the interest payments on our debt. We also have the option of selling our assets, like our land or our infrastructure, to private companies and invest that money. But that one's tricky because no one wants to feel like the government's selling off the family silver. That almost says hey, we are definitely going bankrupt. So buy it on now. I don't think any of us want to see our country become a mattress firm business model where they pop up one week and it seems like they're already going out of business. I still think they're a human trafficking ring, allegedly. Back on track, Alex. So let's say we find way to allocate the funds. How the hell would it actually work? Fair question. It's of great practice to invest in a mix of things: stocks, bonds, real estate, maybe even some infrastructure projects like roads and bridges. The goal is to make a steady return, just like a retirement account, but for the whole country. This way, through tough economic times, we would have a steady baseline of money we are still making when even our main exports industries are not in the strongest market position. Now, there's another thing we also need to definitely look at, and that's independent management. To keep politicians from messing things up or, I don't know, maybe being worth $300 million when they've only ever been public servants, the fund needs to be managed independently, maybe by something like the Federal Reserve or a new agency altogether. Norway's sovereign wealth fund does this really well. They're super transparent and they only spend about 3% of their returns every year. Also, all of their government's elected officials are tracked on what they're investing in. So it's a great idea in theory, but we need to make sure to implement safeguards so people aren't able to take advantage of the system, which we have seen happen so many times in the past. Also, another thing we need to look at about how this could affect things is how would it be paid out? And how would we reduce the debt? That's the most fun part because you get to say, all right, what do we do with this money? The option we all know we need to look at and would be the most intelligent for the country is to use it to pay down the national debt. Another is to send out annual dividends to citizens, kind of like Alaska does, or both. Just imagine getting a U.S. prosperity check in the mail every year, while also being able to not hear constantly how the debt is growing and our economy is screwed. So we have to get a little nerdy for a second too, because there's a whole other layer to this of why this could be a great idea. I don't know if you've ever heard of the idea before, but it's called GDP to debt ratio. So think of it like this. Basically, we have our debt and our GDP is pretty much how much money we make. It's basically how we It's basically how we measure how healthy our country's finances are. Basically, it compares how much we owe to how much we're making. And it gives us a baseline. Currently, the US is at 126% debt to GDP ratio. That's borderline pretty catastrophic. The only other country that's substantially higher than us is Japan at like 245%. Now, where are countries like Norway, Saudi Arabia, and UAE? They hover between 30 and 45%. It's helping them manage things while also keeping money coming in even when things aren't strong. So, why does that affect you? You have to take a look at it in this sense. Our economy rolls with our government. It's the way a capitalistic market is set up. The more debt we're in, the more expensive it is to lend money. That means higher costs for individuals, which means lower money in fluctuation, which means a weaker economy. Now, if we can bring that down while also creating lower interest rates, a stronger dollar, as it'll become even more of a globally traded currency if we are investing outside of U.S. interests, it would create more financial security for everyone. It's a great thing. Now, this leads right into really how would all of this affect us if we were to actually set up a successful sovereign wealth fund? We would be paying lower taxes in the long run. At least we would hope. If the fund makes enough money, the government wouldn't need to tax us nearly as much to cover our bills. Imagine keeping more of your paycheck while also having just as many, if not more, of the social services. I mean, that's the dream scenario. Other countries are able to attain this. Norway only taxes at 22% flat on income, where I believe I paid 32% on my income based off my tax bracket this year. We also, again, get to look at the benefits of yearly dividends. A national fund could mean an annual payout for everybody in the US. I mean, it may only be a few $100, but something's better than nothing. Because right now, it just seems like any money we give to them is just going down an endless pit that we have no idea where it goes. The most important part, though, is the strengthening of our economy. Lower debt will always mean a stronger economy, which leads to better job opportunities, higher wages, and more stability. Not having to hear about these tech layoffs every 3 weeks and seeing people put up the open to work banner while they're quietly freaking out because they don't know where the next meal is going to come from. That's what this could provide. We also would see much more of a protection from economic crises. And when the next recession hits, because you know it will if we're not already in one, let's be honest, a sovereign wealth fund could help stabilize the economy, kind of like a financial cushion. Less panic, more peace of mind, less freaking out from the market, and us all wanting to pull out immediately because we feel like we're losing all of our money. So, in conclusion, could a sovereign wealth fund fix everything? No, obviously not, especially if it's not managed correctly. But it could be a game changer, helping to lower our debt, boost the economy, and even put some extra cash in your pocket. But like anything else in politics and money, it'll take a lot of work, a lot of debate. And let's be honest, probably a miracle or two for our current system to be able to figure this out. So what do you think? Could this actually work in the US, or is this just a pipe dream? Drop your thoughts below. Smash the like button. Click the subscribe button. I need your help to bring you more information like this. Let's show this is the way that we want to be told things, not from one side or the other. Till next time.